Hello and welcome to the show. Now you may have seen recently I messed about with an autocross course, taking this race car and having some fun in the rain with it, sort of slithering around this circuit and messed about with the GTA 5 editor. Now this course wasn't designed for that purpose. I never intended to ever actually do that as a video, but it was very good fun. Of course, messing about with the editor, kind of got a bit of practice with that one. The actual reason why I built this autocross course was that I wanted to see how different types of cars would fare when faced with an incredibly technical and incredibly narrow circuit. So that's what I am going to be doing today. I took 5 very different sorts of vehicles to run through this course and see how their times would compare. The first vehicle, a sports class car. I've gone for the Coquette because it's a vehicle that I've never really used that much before in videos, and I fancied giving it a go. Now the early part of this course here is incredibly narrow through them barriers. There was a little bit of a bump on the tyre walls here, but the rest of the run was very, very quick. So yeah, I mean, if you just ever so slightly scrape them, you don't really lose a huge amount of time. So yeah, it was just a case of carry on. It didn't do anything to the car. Also, for some reason, since I filmed the actual wet weather one, they seem to now be AI people walking around. Just another obstacle for you to try to avoid. You don't want to hit the people because that will slow you down quite a lot. So yeah, there's something else to worry about. The Coquette didn't have any major problems through this course. Got to be careful. This turn here, certainly in the drive when you're pushing these cars as hard as you dare, you can find some bumps and the car will suddenly go a little bit oversteery. So you see me taking a tighter line with this vehicle. Again, it's very narrow through here. You have to sit on weights. You have to wait to get on the power. You also got to be careful not to take too much speed through that particular turn. Very easy to smack the wall on the outside. Still plenty more tight turns for this car to negotiate, but it was dealing with everything that I threw at it. It didn't have too many problems dealing with these tight turns. The fast chicane coming up now, just make sure you get it slowed down enough but still carry as much speed as you can. This hairpin is a horrible one to deal with. It's about the only corner that you want to sort of be handbraking around. The rest of the course you don't want to touch the handbrake unless you absolutely have to. Of course, as soon as you start sliding, you're going to be losing time, and it's easy to lose a lot of time. One thing I did find with this, very easy to start losing huge amounts of time if you start sliding it around the tight corners, because you're just spinning the wheels and not going forward. So yeah, you really don't want to slide the car unless it absolutely has to be slid to get around the turn. Like up here, you're going to have to, as that is such a tight part of the track. You have to get the car sliding if you want to get the back end around it, if you actually want to make it through the turn. This final part of the lap, again, we're still dealing with some narrow corners. Again, a little bit of a slide just to make sure you get the back end turn. Up here, because it's uphill and bumpy, you don't really want to do anything to unsettle the vehicle. Through the last of the tight chicanes here, and try and keep it as tight on the inside as you can. If you hook it up nicely, I think it's slightly the way the roads can, but you hook it up nicely, you can get the cars through there very, very quickly. And then it should wiggle through the final few turns, and it is across the line for the first vehicle. So the sports car made it through without too many troubles. We then move on to a supercar. I figured I didn't really want to use the Voltic because that's kind of a little bit cheaty. In all honesty, that's just stupid amounts of grip. So I went for a more traditional supercar, the Infernus. Now, while yes, this is going to be a quicker car, when it comes to the straight bits, we have some issues. This bit here, as you can see, is incredibly slow in the Infernus. The problem with a supercar is they are very long and very wide, and while yes, at high speeds and around a racetrack, sure, they're very good. When you come to these sort of very, very tight, narrow, confined sort of places, I wondered how much they would struggle. And truth be said, the Infernus, yeah, it does struggle. It really struggles around here. There are a couple of different problems. The first thing is that the rear tyres are so large that it's actually quite hard to spin up the rear wheels. Now that means when you come to a hairpin such as this one here, now this one here I've got enough speed so I can kind of handbrake it if things are going a bit wrong, but if you're trying to get out of a very tight corner with the likes of the Coquette, you could spin the wheels up and get the back end to come round without the car sort of understeering, without the car kind of going a bit wide, whereas in this you just can't. There is so much grip at the back of this vehicle that trying to get it through some of the tight corners is a real pain. You just can't sort of spin the wheels, so if it goes wrong, you can't get away with it. This turn here, I had no end of problems getting it turned in and then down the ramp. It just didn't want to do it. You have to get everything absolutely perfect with the Infernus. There were the practice runs ending up having to do 3-point turns on some of the tighter parts of the track because it just couldn't make the turns. This next bit here is horrible as well. You see me going very slow through the first part. I just can't get the car turned. It just doesn't turn. I have to go across the curb because there is none of the steering. The back end, okay, that's kind of a bit more to do with sort of airtime than it is to do with anything else. The vehicle is pretty damn planted. It's more planted than the Coquette, in all honesty, around here. It doesn't suddenly have bursts of oversteer, but that comes a problem when we come to this section. This is a real pain for the Infernus. You have to really swing it out wide, and then it's kind of dab on the handbrake and then power, and then dab the handbrake again to try and make it round. That's about the best I've ever got round that corner. It is such a horrible turn. In the Infernus, of course, in between the turns, this is a supercar. There is huge amounts of straight line speed, acceleration going on in this. So the minute you get it out of a turn, it's going to make up some of that time that it's lost. It's all about whether the acceleration will be enough to make up for the difficulties. I didn't realise just how difficult it would be to get the supercar around here. It really did. It does sound fantastic, the Infernus, but it really did. It did struggle with these. As we wiggle through the final section, the Infernus is across the line. Up next, went for a little bit of fun. I decided to take out the Dominator. Now, okay, you know, it's never likely to beat the Coquette or the Infernus in a normal, proper race, but I wondered how the muscle car would do. These things are pretty damn fast. I have to say, the Dominators are really very good cars. So yeah, I was curious to see how this one would do. Unlike the Infernus, that you can't really spin up the wheels and you can't get it sliding particularly easily. Of course, this one here will. It's a rear-wheel drive, powerful muscle car. It will slide whenever you want it to. Now that can be useful at some times through this course. If things are just slightly out of position, you just need to get the back end around a little bit more. You can do that with a Dominator. It was certainly the most fun car of this lot to drive around here. It was much easier with just having that little bit more, or that little lack of grip, I should say, in the rear end. You can get it around the tighter corners. Admittedly, if I was on a high-speed circuit, of course, the Mustang would struggle a lot more with the sort of floundering around sideways. But around here, it was kind of useful. But of course, the minute you're starting sliding on the exit of a corner like that, it's going to start losing time. The other slight downside I found with this car, I'm not sure if it's wider. I had a few more issues with some of the narrow bits, like through the tunnel and down that very narrow street. I did clip the Mustang a few times on that. It's not quite got the turning through through that section there. It's not got the same overall grip as you get from the Infernus, or that you get from the Coquette, but through somewhere like here, I had less trouble. See, I ran a little bit deep on the way in, but I could risk. If I'd done that with the Infernus, that would be a 3-point turn. It would have been a 3-point turn, it would have got stuck. But because the Dominator has the power, or I should say has the lack of rear grip, has smaller tyres at the back, you can kind of spin the wheels up and you can get it around without any problems. And again, this hairpin here, much less daunting with the Dominator when you know you can chuck it in and you can get the car around and sorted. Of course, the speed is not as fast accelerating. So in between the corners, it doesn't have the speed of the Coquette, or certainly the speed of the Infernus. As I said, the overall grip is maybe not quite there, but definitely a lot of fun to drive around here. You've got to be careful. Quite a lot of throttle control really with the Dominator on some of these corners, because you don't want it sliding unless it absolutely has to be. Like here, it's lovely because you can actually get it turn without too many problems. But like over this jump, this bit here, it's easy to lose quite a lot of time sliding the car just on the landing of the jump. I almost got things wrong on that particular ramp. Just had the wheels right on the edge. Yeah, that's a silly thing to do. Got away with it though. We came up towards the final chicaney bit. You can't quite carry the same speed again, making sure to hook it up on the inside and get as good a run out of that turn as we can. Again, you can just see the back end it's sort of thinking about sliding around, but it does just about stay in check and a wiggle through the final corners, and it is across the line. Now I threw in the Izzy just for a little bit of fun. I didn't know quite how this was going to fare. It's going to have nowhere near the speed of the other vehicles when it comes to sort of acceleration, straight line. It's front wheel drive. However, it is very small and has a very, very good turning circle. Now, I chose to use this car over the Panto. I'm not a huge fan of the Panto. I mean, you can have fun with it, but the Panto is rear-wheel drive and such a tiny wheelbase, it can sometimes be a little bit twitchy. So I thought I'd go with the Mini instead. And as you can imagine, this car is fantastic at this sort of thing. It's absolutely amazing through this course because it changes direction so well, and it has such a short wheelbase that the corners are no problem for the vehicle. At no point did I ever have to do a 3-point turn with this car. You won't get it stuck on this course, provided you're sensible and everything with it. Sure, if you're a moron, you can get it stuck. But yeah, there's just such a huge amount of sort of grip, and you can turn the incredibly tight corners with absolutely no issues. It's also, I think, probably the narrowest car here. I had no problems going through, like down this alleyway, going through the previous tunnel. I don't think I clipped the tunnel wall once with this vehicle, and that tunnel is literally, it's just about wide enough for a car. So yeah, there were a few incidents with other vehicles, but there is no problems. You can carry more speed through the chicanes. It doesn't have issues with them. Again, I was pushing it on that turn. That concrete wall on the outside has claimed many a victim. And also, again, running just a tiny little bit too deep in that corner. The Mini can get away with it because it has enough turning circle. Now, this car, slightly odd thing with it, because it's front-wheel drive, you cannot go near the handbrake with this. If you have to rip the handbrake to try and get it turned, you're suddenly going to lose all momentum, and then you're going to try and get going again. It's probably going to spin the front wheels. The hairpin there is the only corner that I will touch the handbrake on with the Mini. You just can't do it. The minute you start spinning up the wheels in a front-wheel drive car, it's going to lose all of its speed. So it's all about kind of being a bit smooth with this vehicle as well. Got to make sure you don't get any wheel spin at all with this car, because that it loses you so much time in this one. There was a tiny bit of oversteer, I have to say. For a front-wheel drive car, there was some oversteer when really pushing it around here, especially if you found the bumps. There was no need for even a handbrake on that corner. That's how good the turning circle on this car is. Also, because it was a little bit slower, sometimes some of the bumps and the jumps weren't as much of a problem with this car as they were with others, because you're just going that little bit slower with it. Of course, you try to make up as much time as you can through these corners, getting very brave with the wall there, and then wiggle through the chicane. I carried a little bit too much speed. No other car can carry as much speed into that chicane as you can with the Mini. So I found a bump on that course that very nearly caused problems. Again, you can be really quick through this final section with wiggling through the poles. And the final vehicle, I couldn't decide what to use for a fifth vehicle. I was looking through the coupes and came up with the Exemplar. This is essentially the four-door version of the Rapid GT. Basically, it's an Aston Martin Rapide. This is a quick car. These are very, very quick cars. They've got kind of sports car performance, but look at the size of it. It's a great big four-door saloon car. It's a really rather long vehicle. And on a course like this, you don't want a long vehicle. You want a smaller vehicle as possible. I saw how good the Mini was and how much fun that Mini was to drive. Having a big four-door car is not necessarily a good thing around here. One thing I will say, this corner here, you can see there's sort of puddles around on the outside. That's just the way that road is made. I've never noticed how much a single puddle can cause oversteer on this game before, until that corner. No, it's never as noticeable as when you're trying to push it through that turn. If you hit the water, the back end will step out on you. I've never noticed that sort of detail on GTA 5 before, but the Exemplar does really very well. Much like in the vein of sort of like the Coquette and the Dominator, there is enough power in this vehicle, and unlike the Infernus, there's not quite as much grip, so that if things are going a little bit wrong, you can spin up the rear wheels, and despite its length, it is incredibly agile through the chicanes. That time, I do just bounce off the wall. That was one of the that was a big problem zone for doing that. Fortunately, in the way that I hit it here, I lost absolutely no time. I don't even think it did any damage. It was just a bit of a clonk off the wall, but the Exemplar has huge amounts of grip for such a big vehicle. I didn't expect it to be able to change direction as well as it did. So these chicanes, despite it being a big vehicle, it was getting through them without too many problems. Again, a little bit of a rip on the handbrake there. That corner is so nasty because it's not a very long run in to where you suddenly take the hairpin, and you end up kind of want to be on the outside for the way into it. And yeah, the cars were having problems with getting it turned, but again, the Exemplar with a bit of handbrake use, you can get it through without too many problems. Again, running up towards the probably one of the nastiest, tightest sections of the course. there were no issues with this car through there. That's where the Infernus had so much trouble getting through, and I thought this would struggle because of its size, but no, there is enough. You can slide it enough to get around it, but there's still plenty of grip to get out of the corner. Fars, again, we're neat through there, despite the size of the car, and then we're just up towards the final of the narrow chicanes. Very good change of direction from this vehicle. It is pretty much as good as the Coquette through these corners, and then we can use that bit of speed. It's a decently powerful car here. Got a decent amount of speed up towards the final corners, and we wiggle around the lamppost, and it is across the line for the Exemplar. And when we look at the times, it was a little bit of a surprise. The Coquette goes fastest, but only by 0.6 of a second from the Exemplar. The Infernus, well, I didn't expect it to win. I thought it might struggle. It didn't struggle quite as much as I might have expected. It's just that straight line speed, that acceleration. When you do get it out of a turn, there is so much speed in the Infernus that it can make up for some of the lost time, but that's still 3 seconds off a four-door saloon car. The Mini goes, I think that's a decent time, a 2:44.2, essentially 4 seconds off the Infernus for a little front-wheel drive compact car. That's pretty good, only 4 seconds behind the Infernus. And at the bottom, the Dominator, it was very good fun to drive. The Dominator was good fun to drive because you could kind of mess around with it a bit more. The Mini was good fun to drive because it had just so much grip and such good turning circle on that car. Yeah, the Dominator wasn't quite as quick as I expected from it, a 2:49.3. It's just not got the actual grip when you go through the turns. You can't carry the same speed through the chicanes as the other vehicles. But if it does get in trouble, it's much easier to save it with a Dominator. If you just tiny outbrake yourself or whatever, it's much easier to get that car out of trouble. So there we go. The sports cars are the best for the autocross. The supercars, they're just a bit too big for this kind of course. Although I would recommend the Mini. The Mini is bloody good fun to race around here. Maybe not the fastest car, but certainly probably the most enjoyable to actually sort of try and drive quickly through the course. I'm going to put this course up on the Rockstar Social Club, so if you want to download it and have a go with it yourself, you are more than welcome to. However, it is only going to be PC only. Stuff I make on PC can only be used on PC. So, yeah, if you have GTA 5 on PC, you are more than welcome to download this course. Have a go yourself, see if you can beat my time around it. Anyway, that is it from me. So thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.